Story. I was cleaning some kiln shelves in the ceramics studio during open lab hours. A student and her mother entered the kiln yard, and I overheard the student say, "Oh no, my pieces didn't get fired." Not my business. I'm just a student wrapping up my last personal firing of the semester. A few seconds later, I felt an aggressive, almost painful tapping on my shoulder. Why didn't her work get fired? It was supposed to be ready to take home today. The student tried to interject, saying, "Mom, that's not my teacher," but this went unheard or ignored by her mother. I responded, "Sorry, I'm just a student here. I don't fire others' work. We need her work done by Friday. She's graduating, and we're leaving the state. You're so selfish for not putting her stuff in that kiln. I saw how much room you have in there." The student looked absolutely mortified behind her mom. I explained that I was firing porcelain, and her daughter's work was low-fire clay, which would have melted in the kiln. I also stated that I'm not allowed to fire other students' pieces unless given the go-ahead by my professor. The mother exclaimed, "That is unacceptable. Get up and fire her work." I paid $1,500, which was an exaggeration, by the way, for this class, and she's going to take home everything she made. I went back into the studio, and the mother followed me into the upper division area, which is off limits to most people, yelling, "Get back here." I ignored her and tried to wrap up a couple of bowls so I could put them in my bag. She then noticed all the work in the advanced space and started touching it. Why aren't the intro classes given projects like this? For how much the course costs, the content should be better, she demanded. "Mom, we need to learn the basics first," the student tried to explain, but she was again ignored. I was now blocked from exiting the space by a very angry woman who had her hand on a sculpture my classmate had been working on all semester. She kept telling me I was lazy and that firing takes no effort because the kilns are self-regulating. Our kilns are gas and need constant monitoring over several hours. Finally, my saving grace arrived. Our shop manager, who is known for his short temper, but whom I deeply appreciate for all he does, appeared behind her. I could see the student pale a little, knowing what was coming. The lab manager asked, "What on earth are you doing in the advanced space?" The mother started going off again. My lab manager looked calmly at me and told me I could go. He cleared the way, and I took my chance. Just as I was leaving the studio, I heard him start yelling, "Justice at last, but what an ordeal!" Story 2. A while back, I was coming home from a Halloween party. I had gone dressed as a police officer, not for any particular reason other than the fact that I had played a police officer in a safety video at work, and they let me keep the costume. It was high quality, convincing, and realistic, so I didn't have to spend any money to go to the party. I had a few too many drinks, and by the time I left the party, I couldn't really tell you what I was dressed as, where I was coming from, or where I was headed. I was just on autopilot, stumbling back to the bus stop to go home. As I was making my way, someone seemed to be flagging me down, yelling, "Hurry, hurry, there's a couple fighting, and I think she's about to stab him. You have to come quick." Still on autopilot, I ambled in their direction, not in any big rush, so the girl was really floored and kept yelling at me. And sure enough, there was a fight going on. I wanted to say to the person who flagged me down, "How considerate of you to clue me into this intense fight so I can watch," but I wasn't feeling articulate enough, so I just kind of gave a thumbs up and watched the two people screaming at each other. It was a young man who looked like he'd just been woken up and came down from his apartment, and a woman who was dressed for the clubs but looked a mess. They were screaming at each other, and she kept shoving him, making threats like, "It was always $50. Are you really going to make me go through this over $50?" The guy just kept saying, "I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not." It seemed like people were looking at me, but I didn't have the slightest idea why. Finally, the person who had flagged me down said, "Well, are you going to, do something?" I was baffled, a bit flattered, but also confused. I was trying to make sense of the situation. Was I somehow involved in this altercation? Did I know these people? Did I cause this fight? But it was clear everyone expected something of me, so I decided the best course was to fake it until I made it. I charged over, doing my best impression of authority, while trying to place the face of either person in the argument. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I'm told it was along the lines of, hey, guys, chill. What's the matter? What's happening? Let's just talk. As I got closer, I saw the woman was holding her car key between her fingers, jabbing it out like she planned to stab the man with it. I just chuckled and said, okay, first of all, that won't work. Haven't you seen the videos? How are you letting her back you up with a car key? Come on, she couldn't open a can with those. I don't know the first thing about physical altercations. Sober me wouldn't be the slightest bit emboldened by street fighting videos I watched late at night, but apparently drunk me felt qualified to offer advice. There was a moment of stunned silence as the bystanders wondered how I could be so ineffective, and the arguing people wondered whether or not I was going to arrest them. When it became clear I was as clueless as they were, the argument continued. Someone in the crowd said, "What? Did you hear that?" And someone else suggested, "We should call some other police, like the emergency number." I was thinking, what? Yeah, of course. I can't believe no one's called the police yet. This is really getting out of hand. Good idea, maybe I should call. But I got distracted by the guy going, "I paid you what you're owed. You can't go changing the price." And the girl was shrieking, "Don't mess with me, Brian," as she got closer and closer to him, and he had to dodge her crazy key hands. So I'm just slack-jawed, watching them again along with everyone else, when someone finally says, "Stop him, she's going to hurt him," while looking directly at me. I wasn't sure why everyone seemed to want me to stop them, thinking to myself, or one of you guys could do something. You were here before me. But I figured I must be involved somehow and didn't know why because everyone kept addressing me directly. Maybe I owed someone money. Maybe I chatted with one of them at the party. In any case, I was like, I've got to hang out with these people more often. They've got a lot more trust and respect for me than my other friends. I was feeling good from all this attention and everyone expecting me to be able to handle things. Finally, I mustered up the most authoritative voice I could and yelled, "Cut it out with the key. I told you already. That will not work." I had everyone quiet again, so that was a step forward. "Now, what exactly is the problem going on here?" I asked. They started to explain, but they were both talking at once, and nothing they said gave me any better understanding as to how I was involved. So finally, I was like, "How do you two know each other?" And the guy said, "We're friends. We're good friends. She's just overreacting a little right now." In hindsight, the guy probably had some illegal substances on him or some other reason to want the authorities, or in my case, people dressed as authorities, to go away. Because he seemed terrified even as he was saying it was all fine. As best I could piece together, stopping the fight would make everyone happy, so I thought back to how my mom would break up an argument and implored them, "Come on, guys. Friends shouldn't be arguing this way. Let's go. Whatever this is, we're going to set it aside and we're going to sleep on it. Until then, I want you to hug it out. Come on." And I started ushering them toward one another. I guess the girl didn't really want to deal with people dressed as authorities either because, although she begrudgingly put her keys down, she didn't go in for a hug. So Rowdy, inebriated me, was like, "Come on, hug. Anything could happen. Life is short. You could be gone tomorrow." This poor girl thought the authorities were threatening to harm her if she didn't comply with an order to hug it out. They hugged, and then I was like, "All right, where are you guys from?" And the guy was like, "I'm staying here, at this building." And I was like, "Okay, then go home. You two need to cool off. And tomorrow, maybe you'll have forgotten about this whole thing. You two, go. Go somewhere else," I said to the girl, vaguely gesturing away from the building. She started to say something about her $50, but I was tired and ready to go home, so I was like, "Now, you can pick this up again tomorrow. You two, man, go inside. Get some sleep. It's late." You could hear the crowd whispering in confused awe as I watched the girl leave and the guy go inside, just yelling over them if they tried to start up again until they'd both cleared out, and then stumbling off myself. I went home, showered, passed out, and barely remembered any of it the next day. Just vaguely remembered talking to some people arguing on my way home. About a week later, I went to a friend's house again, and someone was there who had apparently been in the crowd. They were like, "Oh my goodness, you're the cop who broke up that fight in front of my building. Between you and me, I promise I'll keep it on the low, but were you under the influence on the job? You seemed out of it. Were you off duty or..." I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. The closest I'd ever been to a street fight was watching online videos. She was like, "Yeah, you talked about watching online videos. So did you make them hug just to mess with them? Or is that like an actual thing they really teach authorities to do to de-escalate things?" That got my attention because what were the odds of someone who looked like me being in this area, talking about online videos? And I did remember the people I talked to hugging, so I asked her to elaborate. And as she recounted the events, the whole thing started coming back to me. I was like, "Hey, yeah, that was me," and laughed, focused more on the breaking up a fight part and not really registering the authority figure part. So my confused buddy was like, "Ooh, don't pull her leg like that, come on. They wouldn't let you be an authority figure on your best day." And I had to think about that one for a second because he was absolutely right. Finally, I put the pieces together and sheepishly explained the mix-up. We all had a good laugh over it, and I learned never to drink while dressed as someone who is illegal to impersonate, even accidentally, because you never know what could happen. Story 3. A few years back, I worked as a police dispatcher. We were required to dress in business casual attire, so khakis and a button-down or polo shirt were standard. I'm assuming you've read the title and see where this is going. After work one day, my girlfriend and I stopped by a store on the way home to grab a few things. I was wearing, you guessed it, a red polo with khaki pants. I also had an ID badge on my belt denoting communicator, ex-police department. I grabbed some olive oil and brought it to my girlfriend, who told me she had gotten some a few days ago. So I went back to the olive oil aisle and put it back in its proper place because I'm not an inconsiderate person. As I was doing this, a lady came up to me and asked where she could find a particular brand of dog food. I thought she was just asking for my opinion, so I gave her a general direction. She went off on her way. About 5 minutes later, I was looking at razors when I felt someone poke me on my shoulder. I turned and found the lady standing there, looking displeased. "My dog food wasn't where you said it was," she stated. I responded, "Well, I don't know. I guess ask someone who works here." To which she replied, "I am you." "Nope, I don't work here," I said, turning and looking away. "Yes, you do. You were stocking shelves." "Yeah, don't talk to me," I replied. At this point, she grabbed my arm and pulled me to face her. Have you ever felt a sudden flare of anger? I did. This woman touched me. She began, "Young man, I'm a customer, and you'd better." "Don't you touch me," I interrupted, my voice raised now. "Touch me again, and you and I are going to have a problem." She was obviously taken aback. She said something about me being fired and demanding to see a manager before scurrying away. I found my girlfriend, and we went to check out. At this point, it still hadn't really clicked that she thought I worked there. I just thought she was rude. We got to the self-checkout, and the lady returned with a store employee. "That's him. That's your stock boy who threatened me," she exclaimed. "What on earth? I don't work here, lady." "Leave me alone," I said. The manager, looking nonplussed, said, "You don't work here." "Nope," I confirmed. This lady started bothering me, then grabbed me. My girlfriend added, "He doesn't work here." "Don't you lie to me," the lady accused. "You were stocking shelves and told me where to get dog food." I replied, "Leave me alone, or we're gonna have real problems." She retorted, "How about I call the authorities and tell them how you just threatened me?" I said, "I dare you," and showed her my ID badge. "Let's see how that works out for you." I should mention that the police department I worked for was in the same town as the store. The manager took the opportunity to say, "Have a nice evening," and motioned the woman away, which she followed. She just gaped at me when she realized I was, in fact, not an employee of the store, but of the police department she was going to call on me. Not a big story with fireworks, but still one to tell. Moral: Beware of wearing red polos and stay careful, my friends. Story 4. This story takes place around February or March 2020. In my country, there were safety guidelines due to a global health crisis for a week or so, which included social distancing, limited numbers of people allowed per store, and such. A 22-year-old female, work in a store with a blue uniform. I was starting to get a headache, so I asked my boss if I could go to the store next door, where they sell painkillers and vitamins. They wear red uniforms. After waiting in line, I got lucky and grabbed the last box of paracetamol. I'm allergic to a lot of other painkillers. The feeling of luck soon vanished when a wild customer, around 40 years old, appeared. She took the box out of my hand. I was shocked. "Excuse me," I said. "Just keep restocking. I need more than that," she replied. I looked around to see if she was talking to me and said, "Ma'am, I don't work here. May I have that back, please?" The customer looked confused, then realized I did not work there, but still said, "Well, I'm keeping these. Take something else." "Ma'am, I am allergic to the other painkillers. Can I have the paracetamol back, please?" I asked. She screamed, "You don't need them anyway. You are young. If I get sick, I could die. I need them more." At this point, my headache was unbearable, and I felt sick, so I signaled an employee and explained what happened. The employee took the box of paracetamol and gave it back to me, then asked the lady to leave the store for not following the social distance guidelines. Man, never had I encountered a customer like that. Story 5. I think I encountered the male equivalent of a problematic customer. I was at a bank today, sitting in the waiting lobby, waiting to speak with a mortgage lender. Although I do not work at this bank, I do work in the financial sector, so I was wearing a suit and tie. A man, who seemed to fit the description of an entitled customer, approached me while I was sitting in the waiting room. He must have assumed that I was an employee of the bank and started asking me about opening a savings account. I politely replied, "Sir, I do not work here." He lost his temper and started raising his voice, demanding to speak to the manager. The worst part was that his grandchildren, I presume, were present when their old, cranky grandfather started to throw a temper tantrum in a bank. I could tell the grandchildren were embarrassed. One of the ladies behind the counter then moved in his direction to attempt to handle the situation, but he became even louder and more immature when she asked if she could help him. "This rude person told me he is not going to help me, and now I'm going to take my business somewhere else," he exclaimed. She responded, "Sir, he does not work here." To which he said, "Well, then who does?" She calmly replied, "I do." He continued, "I want to speak to the manager." I couldn't contain myself and started laughing loudly.